Every drug and its effects explained. Caffeine. Caffeine is a stimulant, a chemical that speeds up your brain and nervous system. It's found in coffee, tea, soda, and energy drinks, powering billions of people every morning. For most, it isn't just a drink, it's a ritual. The day doesn't begin until that first sip hits. Once you drink it, caffeine enters your bloodstream and quickly travels to your brain. There, it blocks a chemical called adenosine, which is what tells your brain it's tired. So caffeine doesn't give you energy, it just hides your exhaustion. Your neurons start firing faster, your heart beats stronger, and suddenly you feel sharper, more alive. Within 20 to 30 minutes, the peak kicks in. You're focused, energized, and motivated. The world feels clearer, easier, more controllable. It's not euphoria, it's confidence in a cup. But as your body breaks it down, adenosine floods back, and you crash. That clear focus fades into irritability, jitteriness, and the creeping thought that maybe one more coffee will fix it. Caffeine is mildly addictive, but it hides behind routine. Over time, your brain adjusts and stops producing as much natural alertness. You need more caffeine to feel normal. Quit suddenly and you'll notice it. Headaches, fatigue, and brain fog. We joke about needing coffee to live, but that's withdrawal disguised as culture. The truth is, caffeine doesn't wake you up. It just delays your tiredness until later. Nicotine. Nicotine is a fast-acting stimulant found in tobacco and vapes. The chemical that hooks people, not the smoke itself. It's inhaled through smoke or vapor, and within seconds it hits the brain, releasing a surge of dopamine, the chemical that makes you feel calm, focused, and content. At first, it feels perfect. Your heart rate rises just a little, your thoughts clear up, and stress melts away. That's the onset. A brief, clean high that feels controlled. For a few minutes, your brain runs smoother. But nicotine burns out quickly. As dopamine fades, the calm turns into tension, restlessness, and a craving for another hit. That's the come down, and it's what keeps people chained to the cycle. Each puff gives temporary relief from the discomfort that the last puff created. That's the trap. Nicotine doesn't actually relax you. It just resets withdrawal. Your brain learns that peace only exists between cravings. Over time, nicotine changes how your brain releases dopamine, meaning without it, everything feels dull and flat. Physically, it damages your lungs, blood vessels, and heart. But mentally, it's even worse. It convinces you that you can't cope without it. Alcohol. Alcohol is a depressant, meaning it slows down your brain and nervous system. It's drunk everywhere. At parties, dinners, celebrations, commiserations, people drink to loosen up, to forget, or just to belong. Once it enters your bloodstream, it starts disrupting how your brain communicates with itself. At first, that feels good. The onset brings warmth, relaxation, and a sense of confidence. You feel more open, more social. Your thoughts quiet down, your body relaxes, and the moment feels easy. For a while, alcohol seems like the key to connection. Then comes the peak. Judgment fades, emotions rise. You talk louder, laugh harder, maybe cross lines you wouldn't sober. The body starts losing balance, coordination slips, but the brain still feels like everything's fine. That's the illusion. Alcohol slows your brain while convincing you you're still in control. Eventually, the come-down hits. The fun tilts into exhaustion. The warmth turns heavy, the buzz turns blurry. Hours later, you're dehydrated, nauseous, and foggy. The next morning, your brain chemistry crashes completely. The hangover. Alcohol is addictive in quiet, familiar ways. The more often you drink, the more your brain expects it to relax. Soon you're not drinking for fun, but just to feel normal. Over time, it damages your liver, weakens your heart, and erodes your self-control. It's a chemical that makes you feel alive, while slowly dulling everything that makes you human. Cannabis. Cannabis is a psychoactive drug made from the marijuana plant. It's most often smoked, vaped, or eaten as an edible. The main active chemical is THC, which interacts with the brain's endocannabinoid system, the network that regulates mood, memory, and perception. When THC enters the bloodstream, it rushes to the brain and binds to receptors that normally handle natural chemicals called anandamides, molecules that help you feel relaxed and balanced. That's when the onset hits. Time slows down, your senses sharpen, and everything feels slightly funnier, warmer, softer. At its peak, Cannabis can heighten creativity and calm, or tip into confusion and paranoia depending on the dose and mindset. Music sounds deeper, colors feel stronger, and ideas seem profound. It's a distortion of normal reality that feels both dreamy and focused at once. As the come-down begins, thought slows, speech drifts, and tiredness sets in. For some, it's gentle. For others, it's heavy, an invisible fog that lingers into the next morning. Cannabis is mildly addictive, but mostly psychologically. Regular use can dull motivation, mess with short-term memory, and in heavy doses, trigger anxiety or panic. It's often called harmless, but it quietly reshapes how your brain rewards relaxation. Cocaine. Cocaine is a powerful stimulant made from coca leaf. It's most commonly snorted as a white powder, but can also be smoked or injected. Once it enters the bloodstream, it floods the brain with dopamine, blocking your body from reabsorbing it. Suddenly, your brain is drowning in pleasure signals. The onset is almost instant, a rush of euphoria, energy, and confidence. Your heart pounds, your pupils widen, and your brain feels electric. Every thought feels brilliant. Every move feels perfect. You feel untouchable. At the peak, you're fast, focused, and alive. But the brain's reward system is already burning through its fuel. The high is sharp and short. Within minutes, dopamine levels crash, and the come-down slams in. Anxiety rises, mood drops, and exhaustion hits. You crave more just to feel normal again. Cocaine is highly addictive. The brain quickly learns to link it with pleasure, motivation, and control. But it's an illusion. Each hit rewires you to need another. Over time, it damages the heart, constricts blood vessels, and rewires brain chemistry so deeply that joy without it feels impossible. MDMA. MDMA, better known as ecstasy or Molly, is a synthetic stimulant and hallucinogen. It's usually swallowed as a pill or capsule at parties or clubs. The chemical floods your brain with serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin, the trio responsible for happiness, reward, and connection. As the onset begins, warmth spreads through your body. Music sounds richer, lights shimmer, and touch feels electric. You feel deeply connected to friends, to strangers, to everything around you. The brain is running on maximum empathy. At the peak, serotonin levels spike and the world feels perfect. You dance for hours. You talk non-stop. You feel infinite. But MDMA burns through the brain's supply of serotonin so fast that within hours, the come-down starts. Emotion drains out of you, replaced by emptiness, sadness, or exhaustion. The high leaves as suddenly as it arrived. Used too often, MDMA damages the neurons that release serotonin, making natural happiness harder to reach. Physically, it can overheat your body, dehydrate you, and in rare cases, cause organ failure. It's called a love drug because it makes you feel connected to everyone, but when it's over, you realize that connection was chemical, not real, and your brain's left paying the price. LSD. LSD is a hallucinogen, a mind-bending chemical that completely rewires how your brain processes reality. It's usually taken on tiny papers placed on the tongue, and the amount you ingest is microscopic, measured in millionths of a gram. Once it hits, LSD binds to serotonin receptors, particularly one called 5-HT2A, which helps shape perception and mood. That's when the onset begins. Patterns start moving, colors shift, sounds seem to glow. It's not like seeing hallucinations appear, it's like reality itself starts breathing. At the peak, which can last for hours, time loses meaning. Your sense of self, the part of your brain that says, "I'm me," dissolves. You might feel connected to the universe, euphoric, terrified, or both. Emotions become physical. Music feels alive. The boundaries between thoughts and sensations blur until everything feels like one continuous wave. Then comes the come-down, slow, gentle, like returning from orbit. Reality rebuilds itself piece by piece. You might feel calm, reflective, or emotionally drained. Some people describe it as a reset, others as being rewired. LSD isn't physically addictive, but it's unpredictable. The same dose can be bliss or nightmare, depending on your mindset and environment. It can also trigger flashbacks or anxiety long after the trip is over. LSD opens the mind, but it doesn't always close the door cleanly behind it. Ketamine. Ketamine is a dissociative anesthetic, originally designed for surgery. It's used medically today in small doses to treat depression, but recreationally, it's taken for its out-of-body effects. It's snorted as a powder or injected in liquid form. When it enters your system, ketamine blocks a chemical messenger called glutamate, which helps your brain process sensory input and maintain awareness. The onset comes fast. Within minutes, the world starts to feel distant, muffled, almost dreamlike. At the peak, perception detaches completely. You might feel like you're floating above your body, or watching your life from a distance, what users call the K-hole. Time stops making sense. You might see yourself from the outside, or feel like you've left your body entirely. It's not always pleasant. For some, it's peaceful. For others, terrifying. As the come-down begins, awareness slowly returns. Vision clears, speech reconnects, but the world still feels foggy. For a short while, it can leave you strangely calm, like your thoughts are moving underwater. Ketamine isn't classically addictive, but it builds tolerance fast. Heavy use can cause memory problems, bladder damage, and emotional numbness. It can disconnect you from pain, but also from meaning. It's a drug that separates body from mind, and sometimes they don't fully meet again. Opioids. Opioids are painkillers that come from the opium poppy, or are made synthetically in labs. They're used medically as morphine or oxycodone, but on the street, they show up as heroin or fentanyl. They're swallowed, smoked, snorted, or injected, and all work the same way. They attach to opioid receptors in your brain and body, blocking pain and flooding you with euphoria. The onset brings warmth, comfort, and relief. A deep, heavy calm that feels like safety itself. Pain fades, stress disappears, and your body melts. It's not an energetic high. It's like sinking into the world's softest blanket. At the peak, everything slows. Breathing becomes shallow, your heartbeat slows, and thoughts drift. It's bliss, but dangerously close to unconsciousness. Many users chase that feeling, but each time it's shorter, weaker, harder to reach. Then comes the come down, and it's brutal. Anxiety, muscle pain, nausea, sweating, insomnia. Every nerve in your body screams for the drug again. That's withdrawal. It doesn't just make you want more. It makes life unbearable without it. Opioids are among the most addictive substances known. They rewire the brain's survival system, teaching it that the drug is as essential as air. Over time, they destroy tolerance, organs, relationships, everything. The warmth they give in the beginning is the same warmth they take away from everything else in life. Methamphetamine. Methamphetamine is a powerful stimulant, a chemical that floods your brain with dopamine and adrenaline, supercharging everything at once. It's often taken by smoking, swallowing, snorting, or injection, and within seconds, it hits like a lightning bolt. As the onset begins, energy explodes. Your heart races, your mind sharpens, and every sense turns up to maximum volume. You feel awake, unstoppable, invincible. Talk becomes fast, thoughts move quicker than words, and sleep feels completely optional. At the peak, the rush is pure intensity. Confidence turns into euphoria. Motivation becomes obsession. You might clean your whole house, talk for hours, or chase a goal that suddenly feels like destiny. It feels like control, but your brain's just burning through its entire dopamine supply in one go. Then comes the come down, and it's harsh. Energy vanishes. The mind crashes into exhaustion, depression, and paranoia. The world feels gray, slow, and empty, a chemical hangover that can last for days. Meth is extremely addictive. Each high rewires your brain to crave that rush again, while destroying the system that creates pleasure naturally. Over time, it leads to severe weight loss, insomnia, hallucinations, and memory loss. Meth gives you energy that feels infinite, until you realize it's stolen from your future self. Psilocybin, better known as magic mushrooms, is a hallucinogen found in certain fungi. It's eaten raw, brewed as tea, or ground into capsules. Once consumed, the body converts psilocybin into psilocin, which interacts with serotonin receptors in the brain. The onset starts within half an hour. Your senses sharpen, patterns shimmer, and reality begins to ripple. Laughter comes easily. Music feels alive. You're aware of everything at once. Your body, your breath, the air around you. At the peak, perception transforms completely. Colors pulse, time stretches, and you may feel a deep connection to nature, memory, or emotion. Some describe it as enlightenment, others as chaos. It's like your mind dissolves into something bigger, beautiful or overwhelming, depending on what you bring into it. As the come-down arrives, thoughts settle. The world slowly rebuilds itself. You might feel peaceful, grateful, or emotionally open. But for some, it leaves confusion or anxiety that lingers for days. Psilocybin isn't physically addictive, but it's powerful. It can help people break old patterns, or, in the wrong setting, trigger panic or psychosis. Mushrooms don't show you something new. They just pull back the curtain on what's already in your mind. Benzodiazepine. Benzodiazepines, or benzos, are sedatives prescribed to treat anxiety, panic attacks, or insomnia. They're usually taken as pills, and they work by enhancing GABA, a brain chemical that slows down activity and brings calm. After swallowing one, the onset feels like relief. Muscles loosen, thoughts quiet, and the world stops feeling so sharp. Your heart slows, your body relaxes, and stress drifts away like fog. At the peak, everything feels soft and distant. Worry fades, time drifts, and sleep comes easily. But as the come-down starts, drowsiness turns to confusion, memory slips, and emotion flattens. With frequent use, the brain forgets how to stay calm without it. Benzos are highly addictive, especially when used beyond prescription. Over time, tolerance builds fast, meaning you need more for the same calm. Stopping suddenly can cause anxiety, tremors, or even seizures, a withdrawal that can be dangerous without medical help. They quiet your mind, but silence can be addictive. The danger isn't the calm they bring, it's how easily they convince you that you can't live without it. Every way to reprogram your brain to crave hard work. Finish what you start. Your brain is wired to chase closure. Every time you finish something, it can be anything, even something as small as washing the last dish, sending the email, completing a workout, you trigger a chemical reward, dopamine, that makes you feel good and urges your brain to do it again. That small burst is how momentum is built in your life. Most people never reach it because they quit halfway, chasing easier pleasures that deliver quick hits of dopamine. The brain learns that avoidance feels safer than completion, and the cycle repeats. To your brain, it can do easier work but still receive dopamine, so why would it even bother doing the harder but more beneficial task? If you change your mindset and you push through and close the loop, you're teaching yourself that effort pays off more than escape. Finishing becomes its own addiction. It doesn't have to be huge, just something with a clear end. Read 10 pages of a book, or complete that last rep. Every small win rewires the system in your brain. Over time, your brain stops craving the comfort of quitting and starts craving the satisfaction of being done. I bet a lot of you watching won't even make it to the end of this video. A decent amount of people are already gone. This just proves how a complete video, with constant moving and a voiceover, isn't enough stimulation for your brain to want to continue watching. Take boring breaks. Most people sabotage their discipline in the moments they call rest. They work for an hour on a mildly stimulating and mildly rewarding task, but it's easy. But then they take a break and flood their brain with hyperstimulation, scrolling at 100 miles per hour, gaming, eating an extremely unhealthy meal. They do all of these things and then expect to return to focus as if nothing happened. Your brain has now got a new baseline for dopamine. Remember, dopamine is the chemical that causes motivation. So now, your brain will only be motivated to do things that release as much dopamine as scrolling, gaming, or eating junk food. Good luck finding any hard work that fits in that category. The next task can't compete with the thrill you just gave yourself, so you start to avoid it. The fix isn't removing breaks. You want to change how you spend them. Let your rest be boring. Stretch, walk, stare at the ceiling, make tea. Give your mind space to breathe instead of drowning in noise. When your downtime stops spiking your senses, returning to effort feels natural again. You may even be motivated to get back to work. Do one thing at a time. Your brain isn't built for multitasking. Every time you switch tasks, checking a message mid-set, glancing at a notification, flipping between tabs, you force your mind to restart the focus process from zero. That restart costs time, but more importantly, it kills momentum. This relates back to the point, finish what you start, I talked about first. Multitasking feels productive because your hands are busy, but cognitively, it's not working. Your attention is split, and being able to use your brain in depth becomes impossible. The fix is very simple, but it's not easy. When you eat, eat. You don't need to have a Sidemen Among Us video playing before every meal. When you work, focus on the task at hand and check your phone after. Try this. Try going to the toilet without taking your phone. Don't try to merge everything into one endless stream of half focus. Single tasking rebuilds the mental pathways that let you drop into flow, that rare zone where time disappears and effort feels easy. That is the optimal state for working on hard things, and cannot be achieved when you're doom scrolling while finishing your assignment.
The 2-minute rule. Starting something is always the hardest and most intimidating part. Your brain exaggerates how painful a task will be, so it talks you into waiting for motivation, forcing you to procrastinate. The fix to this is super simple. Lower the entry cost. Tell yourself you'll just do it for 2 minutes. You can write 1 sentence, stretch for 1 song, vacuum 1 room. That tiny action tricks your brain into crossing the line between thinking and doing. Once you've started something, the resistance to that task disappears and momentum takes over. Most of the time, you'll end up going longer without even noticing. You don't need to commit to the whole thing, just the first step. This isn't about finishing fast or only doing 2 minutes of work. It's about proving to your brain that work isn't dangerous. Once you start, it's really easy to keep going. Cut cheap dopamine. I know most of you watching won't cut out all cheap dopamine, so I've got something in the next point if that is you. But if you are willing to cut out all forms of cheap dopamine, your brain will rewire very quickly, and then you will nearly instantly crave hard work. Think about it logically. You remove any and all things that give you cheap dopamine. Things like your phone, video games, YouTube, Netflix, junk food, a vape, or any sort of nicotine. Then the only way your brain can possibly get dopamine is through doing something hard, which is why you clicked on this video in the first place. But for most people, they don't want to completely get rid of all of those things. So here's something else you can do. Dopamine loading. Every day you wake up, your dopamine levels have generally reset pretty well. The same goes for your dopamine baseline. This can be used to your advantage, but most people use it to their disadvantage. The second they wake up, they hop straight onto TikTok, doom scrolling in bed, which, as you know by now, is a massive dopamine spike. But they then get up and try to go to work, or study, or do some sort of difficult task, which won't release anywhere near as much dopamine, because your brain wants to keep increasing the levels it's releasing, and the hard, boring work just doesn't release the same amount. This makes it very difficult to actually get the work done. You will feel bored, annoyed, and won't be able to hold your focus for very long at all. Here's how you can actually use it to your advantage. When you wake up in the morning, you need to focus on doing the things you need to do, rather than things that release a lot of dopamine. Wake up, have a shower, and get straight into work, studying, whatever it is that you have to do. As the day goes on, maintain this state of low dopamine, which actually feels high, until you reach the end of your day when you're not going to be trying to do any more low dopamine tasks. Once you reach the end of your work, then you can start loading in all of the high dopamine, low effort tasks, like doom scrolling and junk food. If that was difficult to understand, you want to do the tasks in your day starting from low dopamine releasing tasks and moving up into high dopamine releasing tasks. That way your baseline will not drop throughout the entire day. Adopting a growth mindset. Most people work hard for some outcome that comes once they finish the hard work. Maybe it's money or it's a social outcome, which is great and perfectly fine. But working hard at something for only the sake of a reward that comes after can make the work a lot more challenging, as well as deter you from wanting to work hard again in the future. Switching your view to a growth mindset, which is putting yourself in the mindset of striving to be better, rewarding the hard work and effort you put in along the way rather than just the final outcome. You see the hard work as something that is great, even though it may feel bad in the moment. Being able to do this simple mindset switch allows your brain to release dopamine when you're experiencing a challenge or some sort of friction. But this is actually impossible when you are only focused on the goal or the reward that comes at the end of all of your hard work. When you are able to attach pain, hardship, and friction to an internal reward system, even if it's just being proud of yourself, you will start to be able to access the dopamine release during the actual hard work, not just after you achieve the reward. This not only makes the hard work more enjoyable, you actually make it less painful. You make yourself more efficient at the task, and you make yourself more likely to engage in that activity again next time around.
So when you're doing something hard, be happy that it is hard, and keep going. Hard work is where you find the biggest rewards. Dopamine stacking. Most people don't realize how much they overload their brain's reward system. Some people may think smashing pre-workout, pumping loud music, and doing some hard exercise is amazing for you. And while it may be good for your workout and body, this is called dopamine stacking, where you stack multiple dopamine-releasing activities on top of each other. While it may help during the exact task, afterwards you will have a dip in your dopamine baseline. Not only that, if you ever try to work out without the music and pre-workout, you will be much less inclined to actually do the hard work because your brain won't have that extra dopamine release. Now, this can be a good thing. You can stack a task that releases dopamine at the same time you start a hard task you don't want to do, tricking your brain into releasing dopamine and making you motivated to do work you might not have previously wanted to do. Dopamine stacking can get dangerous when people do things like watch TV, scroll on their phone, and eat junk food all at the same time, then wonder why they can't focus on a less stimulating task. If that's you, avoid it if you want any chance at actually being able to do hard work. Deliberately do hard things. Your brain only adapts when it's challenged. Every time you avoid something difficult, not having a cold shower, not doing a tough workout, avoiding an uncomfortable conversation, you teach your brain that comfort equals safety and discomfort equals danger. But the nervous system learns from exposure, not avoidance. When you deliberately do something hard, you trigger a small stress response in your body. Your heart rate rises, adrenaline spikes, but after you complete it, your body releases dopamine and serotonin as a reward for overcoming that stress. Over time, your brain begins to associate effort with relief. That's the entire point of discipline training, to make discomfort familiar. You don't need to go extreme and be the most disciplined person in the world. You just need to be consistent. Lift heavier than you want to a couple times a week. Speak when you think you should stay quiet. Wake up when it's the last thing in the world you want to do. Every deliberate hardship tells your brain the same thing. We can handle this. And eventually, it stops resisting hard work, and it actually chases it. Gamify hard work. This one might not work for everyone, but turning hard work into a video game is a great way to make the hard work easier. Your brain loves games because games make effort visible. You can see progress, track points, and get rewarded for action, not just outcomes. You can see how this one links to the growth mindset section. Hard work often feels endless and abstract, so your brain doesn't know when to celebrate. You can fix that by turning your work into a system that feeds the same reward loops games use. Keep a score for how many little tasks you can do in a set amount of time. Then reward yourself if you hit a new record, or just race the clock. Assign yourself levels and missions instead of vague goals like be productive. Each small win releases a burst of motivation, reminding your brain that progress feels good. The trick is to make the challenge hard enough to stay interesting, but make it achievable enough to stay rewarding. If you manage to gamify every area of your life where you want to improve, you will improve crazy fast. Work with other people. Hard work is contagious. Your brain mirrors the behavior of whoever it's around. This is a built-in system called social mirroring. If you spend time with people who focus deeply, delay comfort, and take pride in effort, your nervous system copies that rhythm without you realizing it. The opposite is true too. When you spend time around constant distraction and your brain normalizes avoidance, you will find it much harder to get stuff done. Working alongside others creates shared pressure, shared standards, and subtle accountability. There is the natural human desire where people don't want to look or feel lazy. If you sit around with 3 hardworking friends and you are doom scrolling while eating chips, you will feel lazy, which your body will naturally use as motivation to do the hard work. Even silent co-working changes your output, because your brain interprets other people's focus as a cue to do the same. Humans evolved to perform best in groups, where effort meant survival. Surround yourself with people who treat discipline the same way, and your brain will naturally start seeing hard work as being a part of a group and surviving. Dopamine detox. This buzzword has been spread across all social media in the past few years, and most people probably don't actually know what it actually does. The world is built so that you can have a million forms of stimulation at your fingertips. A dopamine detox is a short reset for your baseline of stimulation and dopamine. It allows you to come back down from the high of the modern world's constant stimulation and lets you think more clearly about what you want and how to get it. You're essentially removing all artificial dopamine sources, like junk food, caffeine, scrolling, video games, and so on, so that your brain starts generating dopamine and motivation for natural sources, like working on something hard, making progress, and small day-to-day activities. The first few days will be excruciating. Your brain will be constantly searching for a quick hit of dopamine, but once you manage to withhold for a few days, something clicks. Silence starts to feel nice instead of your brain panicking for stimulation. Your focus returns, and you start appreciating small things, like simple exercise. Essentially, in a dopamine detox, you reset your baseline for dopamine and rewire what your brain rewards you for, changing it from instant gratification sources of dopamine to meaningful sources that will actually improve your life. The one thing you cannot do is go straight back to all the artificial sources for dopamine once you finish a dopamine detox. That is the time for working on hard things. If there is only one thing that you learn from this video, let it be this. If you are trying to do hard things, make sure you do the hard things before the easy, or you're going to make the hard thing even harder. Totally incorrect facts everybody still believes. Goldfish only have a 3-second memory. Despite what you've been told, goldfish aren't brain-dead swimmers forgetting every 3 seconds. They actually have months-long memory and can recognize faces, patterns, and even feeding schedules. In lab tests, scientists trained goldfish to push levers for food and navigate tiny mazes. And weeks later, they still remembered the trick. They even react differently to people who feed them versus strangers. The 3-second memory idea came from lazy pet owners and a 1950s pop science article that made up the number. In reality, goldfish have a surprisingly complex brain for their size, with learning centers wired like other vertebrates. If yours swims to the glass when you walk in, that's not instinct, that's recognition. So yeah, your goldfish remembers more about you than you think. The Great Wall of China is visible from space. It's one of the longest structures ever built, and one of the most exaggerated. The claim that you can see it from space dates back to a 1930s British textbook, long before anyone actually went there. Astronauts later confirmed, you can't see it unaided. The wall is too narrow, only a few meters wide, built from local stone and clay that blend perfectly into the surrounding terrain. Even from low Earth orbit, it looks like a natural ridge. What is visible are cities, roads, and airports, because they reflect sunlight and have contrast. The wall doesn't. You can pick it up with a telephoto lens under perfect lighting, but that's not naked eye from space. NASA's verdict? No, you can't. It's still a masterpiece of human engineering. You just can't see it from space unaided. Hair and nails keep growing after death. This one's just creepy, but also a pure myth. Hair and nails do not grow after you die. Your skin just shrinks and dries out, creating the illusion of growth. The cells responsible for fingernails and hair production need oxygen and blood flow, both of which vanish quickly after death. Within hours, everything biological stops. But dehydration causes the skin to pull back, exposing more of the nail bed and hair shaft, which makes them look longer. Early morticians saw that and assumed post-mortem growth. The illusion stuck, helped by storytelling. In truth, the only thing growing in a corpse is bacteria. So when people talk about coffins with long fingernails, they're really describing shrink-wrapped skin and bad lighting. If you drop a penny from a skyscraper, it can kill someone. Nope, air resistance saves the day. A falling penny isn't a bullet. It's a featherweight coin with drag. Once it hits terminal velocity, around 25 to 30 miles per hour, it stops accelerating and just flutters like a lazy dart. It might sting, maybe bruise, but it's not punching through your skull. The shape keeps it tumbling and flipping, spreading the air resistance evenly. Mythbusters literally launched pennies off the Empire State Building. None penetrated fruit, gel, or even cardboard. For a coin to kill, it'd need to fall in vacuum conditions, where there's no air drag, so basically on the moon. On Earth, the only real danger is getting arrested for throwing things off skyscrapers. Bulls hate the color red. The matador's red cape isn't a rage trigger, it's a tradition and camouflage. Bulls are dichromats, meaning they see limited color. They can't even distinguish red from green. What actually sets them off is motion, not color. The waving fabric, the human posture, and the roar of the crowd all jack up their stress level. In tests, Stationary red cloths got ignored. Moving blue or white ones got charged. The bull versus red myth stuck because it's cinematic. A bright color makes the scene pop. The real truth is that the bull's not angry at the color. It's confused, provoked by muscle reacting to movement. So if you walk past a bull in a red shirt, don't worry. If it moves, that's the problem.
We use only 10% of our brains.
The myth that we only use 10% of our brains is completely false. MRI scans show activity all over the brain, even during rest. There's no dark, dormant 90% waiting to unlock psychic powers. The myth likely came from early 1900s psychology misquotes. William James once said humans rarely reach their full potential, and pop writers turned that into we use 10%. In reality, even simple actions such as standing, blinking, remembering your password involve networks across multiple regions. Evolution doesn't waste energy. Gray matter is expensive to run. You're using 100%, just not all at once. So no, you can't unlock the other 90% of your brain anytime soon. Eating sugar makes kids hyper. Every parent swears it's true, but every study says it isn't. Controlled trials show no measurable link between sugar intake and hyperactivity. The real cause is context. Birthday parties, playgrounds, chaos, excitement. Parents expect sugar highs, so they see them. It's the placebo effect in action. In double-blind studies, kids on sugar-free diets acted just as wild when parents thought they'd eaten sugar. That's expectation bias, not biochemistry. Picture a kid at a birthday party. Most parents would think that they are excited and energetic because of the cake and food they have been eating. But it is actually just the fact they are at a party. The crash after the party? That's just exhaustion.
Cracking your knuckles causes arthritis.
It makes sense when you think of it. Constantly cracking the bones in your fingers would negatively affect them over time. But the popping sound isn't bone grinding. It's gas bubbles collapsing inside your joint fluid. When you stretch your fingers, the pressure in the joint drops, forming bubbles in the synovial fluid. They collapse milliseconds later with that sharp pop. Studies tracking chronic knuckle crackers for decades found zero increase in arthritis. The worst you get is mild swelling or a weaker grip if you overdo it. The myth started because people equated loud joint noise with damage. In truth, cracking your knuckles is just joint hydraulics doing its thing. If it hurts or swells, that's a real issue. Otherwise, you're fine. Touching baby birds makes their mothers abandon them. Bird moms aren't that fragile. Most species have a terrible sense of smell and don't recognize human scent at all. If you handle a chick and put it back, the parents either don't notice or don't care. The myth comes from well-meaning parents who saw a bird left alone and assumed it was abandoned. In reality, chicks often leave the nest early and hop around while learning to fly. Parents feed them nearby. The real danger isn't your scent, it's stress or injury from too much handling. So if you find a chick, don't kidnap it. Just place it back and let nature resume her shift. Humans evolved from chimps. Despite what you think is true, it's actually not. Chimps are our cousins, not our ancestors. Humans and chimpanzees share a common ancestor that lived roughly 6 to 7 million years ago. That ancestor split into two evolutionary lines, one leading to modern chimps and bonobos, the other to early hominins like Australopithecus, and eventually Homo sapiens. Evolution doesn't work like a ladder. It's a branching tree. We didn't come from chimps any more than birds came from modern lizards. The myth stuck because of old linear charts that looked like an ape slowly straightening into a man. Real evolution is messy, full of dead ends, hybrids, and sideways experiments. Diamonds are made from coal. That's the story every school kid hears. Intense pressure turns coal into diamond. Sounds poetic. It's also completely wrong. Coal forms from dead plants buried in swamps, a few 100 million years old and locked in Earth's crust. Most diamonds, on the other hand, are over 1 billion years older, forged deep in Earth's mantle, about 100 miles down, under immense heat and pressure where no plant has ever existed. They form from pure carbon, not fossilized vegetation, and reach the surface through volcanic eruptions called kimberlite pipes. Different material, different process, different era. Only a microscopic handful of industrial diamonds have ever come from coal under lab conditions. So no, diamonds aren't made from coal. They're born from ancient carbon cooked by the planet itself. Sugar causes diabetes. That's the story. Eat too much sugar, get diabetes. Simple, scary, and wrong. There are two main types of diabetes, and neither is directly caused by sugar. Type 1 is an autoimmune glitch, where your immune system attacks your pancreas, wiping out insulin-producing cells. Sugar has nothing to do with it. Type 2 happens when your body stops responding properly to insulin, usually after years of excess calories, poor sleep, stress, and inactivity. Sure, a diet full of sugar can speed that process up by packing on fat and overloading your system, but it's not the trigger. You could say it's the fuel on the fire. The real villain is chronic energy overload, not one food. You could cut sugar completely and still develop diabetes if you're sedentary and overeat. So, no, sugar doesn't cause diabetes. Your lifestyle does. Gum stays in your body for 7 years. This one's funny to think about, but again, completely wrong. Your stomach isn't a storage locker. Gum passes through your system almost exactly like anything else you can't digest. It just doesn't break down. The base of chewing gum is made from synthetic polymers, kind of like edible rubber. Your body can't dissolve it, but it also doesn't hoard it. It moves through your digestive tract in a few days and exits the normal way. The 7 years myth came from parents trying to scare kids out of swallowing gum. Unless you down an entire pack at once and block your intestines, gum won't stick around. Opposites attract. This sounds romantic and looks great in movies, but it fails completely in real life. Study after study shows people are drawn to similarity, not difference, having the same values, humor, education, politics, even facial features. Psychologists call it the similarity attraction effect. We like people who reflect us, not our opposites. Sure, a loud extrovert might briefly fall for a quiet introvert, but long-term couples tend to share worldviews and habits. Opposites can attract initially because they're novel, but novelty fades. Friction doesn't. That mixed and matched chemistry usually ends up falling apart. Real compatibility comes from shared wavelength, not polarity. You shouldn't subscribe. This one's common knowledge. It's believed that there's no point subscribing to a channel because their videos will just appear once again on your homepage. But this is incorrect. Subscribing and liking the video gives YouTube even more knowledge about what you are interested in. So, subscribe. Weird financial habits that secretly make you richer. Spending money to save time. Most people think getting rich means spending less, cutting subscriptions, skipping takeout, doing everything yourself. But the wealthiest people spend more, and they do it on purpose. They buy back time. Paying for grocery delivery, cleaning help, or software that automates boring work seems wasteful, until you realize time is the only thing that can't be replaced. Every hour you outsource becomes an hour you can spend earning, thinking, or resting, all things that multiply over time. The average person trades time for money. The rich trade money for time. It's not about luxury, it's about leverage. If your time is worth $50 an hour and you can pay someone $20 to handle it, you're not being lazy, you're compounding productivity. Over years, this flips your entire financial trajectory. People who hoard time tasks stay stuck working in their life. People who buy back time start working on it. The poor save dollars, the rich save hours. And hours, unlike money, never come back once they're spent. Measuring purchases in hours. Here's a habit that quietly rewires your brain. Stop measuring money in dollars. Measure it in time. Every purchase becomes a trade between your wallet and your life. A $60 dinner isn't $60. It's 2 or 3 hours of your time. A $1,000 phone is 40 hours of your life. When you see time instead of price, your brain suddenly gets honest about what matters. That's why people who think this way spend less, not because they're frugal, but because they've connected money to meaning. When something costs 10 hours, you ask yourself, is this really worth a full day of my life? Usually the answer's no. The key is that you stop chasing the short dopamine hits of spending and start valuing free time like income. The wealthy already think this way. As I said in the last section, the rich buy time instead of spending it. Using debt to your advantage. Debt is one of those words that scares people, and rightfully so. Bad debt traps you. It's the quicksand of the financial world, easy to step into and nearly impossible to escape. But used right, debt becomes a sort of leverage, one that multiplies your effort far beyond what saving ever could. It's how businesses scale, homeowners build equity, and investors grow faster than inflation. Debt is a tool. It just depends who's holding it. Poor debt buys comfort. Rich debt buys freedom. A car loan for a luxury model bleeds you and holds you down. A loan for property that appreciates pays you back. Most people think of debt as something to fear, but the smart ones treat it like rented speed. Dangerous if uncontrolled, but powerful in skilled hands. The key isn't avoiding debt. It's making sure the thing you borrow for grows faster than the interest you owe. That's how fortunes are built. But if used wrong, debt owns you. Refusing to save every penny. It sounds irresponsible, refusing to save. But here's the paradox. People who try to save every penny almost never get rich. They're too focused on defense, never offense. Saving is survival, not what helps you grow. If all you do is cut costs, your entire financial world shrinks around what's safe. But when you spend strategically on things that expand income, like tools, skills, or relationships, you break that ceiling. The rich don't obsess over $5 coffees. They obsess over $50,000 opportunities. Hoarding money builds fear. Investing it builds momentum. You don't get wealthy by being cheap. You get wealthy by being efficient. When every dollar has to be justified, none of them get to grow. Money has a purpose: to move, to build and multiply. And if you trap it under your mattress, it stops being money at all. It just becomes paper. Investing into yourself. This one feels weird because it looks selfish, spending on yourself instead of saving. But investing into yourself is the single highest return asset class in existence. Courses, coaches, therapy, mentors, fitness, they all seem expensive until you realize how much they change your output. Another way to invest into yourself is paying for accountability. Most people rely on motivation, but motivation is unreliable. Accountability makes progress automatic. The money you spend to have someone expect something from you, a deadline, a deliverable, a goal, forces you to become the kind of person who doesn't waste potential. When you pay for something, you pay attention to it. That's why people who invest in their own growth accelerate faster. They attach real cost to not making progress. Avoiding good deals. Everyone loves a deal. 30% off, buy one, get one, limited time only. I could go on forever. But that feeling of winning at spending is what keeps most people broke. A deal is still an expense. The discount doesn't matter if you didn't need it in the first place. That's the trap. Sales make you feel smart for losing money slower. Wealthy people don't chase deals because they know attention is the real cost. Every good deal steals focus and time you could spend earning or creating. Discounts are marketing, not miracles. Imagine you got offered 50% off of an item that was marked up twice the original price. You've just been manipulated by marketing into buying something for the normal price. The rich measure value by utility instead of a simple price. If something improves their life, they pay full price. If it doesn't, it's overpriced even at 90% off. Good deals keep poor people busy saving pennies. It's better to pay full price for something you need than get 90% off something you don't need. Overpaying on purpose. Overpaying on purpose feels stupid. Why give away more than you owe? But that's exactly why it works. It's not about wasting money. It's about rewiring how you think about it. Most people live in survival mode, always calculating the bare minimum. The minimum payment, the cheapest option, the lowest bid. Overpaying flips that psychology. When you round up payments, send extra toward your credit card, or pay bills early, you teach your brain that money isn't something to hoard in fear. It's a tool you control. The act itself builds an abundance mentality. Instead of, I can't afford this, your mind starts thinking, I'm ahead. And this changes everything. You gain peace, not pressure. Your debts shrink faster. Your relationships with money and people become cleaner because you stop nickel and diming life. Spending on mistakes. We're taught that every mistake costs money. The wealthy treat mistakes differently. They spend on them intentionally. Buying cheap gear, outsourcing too soon, or paying someone else's fee might feel like a bad purchase, but in reality, it's a strategic risk. The lesson costs less than the opportunity lost by inaction. They pay for clarity, not comfort. The moment you stop trying to avoid all mistakes is the moment you start learning fast. Each failed experiment becomes a data point, each misstep a calibration. Wealth doesn't come from getting everything right. It comes from correcting courses quickly. So spending a little now to know that won't work saves a lot later in wasted time and compounded indecision. Mistakes cost money, yes, but indecision costs years. And if there's anything you should have taken from this video so far, it's that wealthy people prefer to waste money than time. Emotionally detaching yourself from money. Most people live in emotional debt to their bank balance. When they have money, they feel safe. When they don't, they panic. The wealthy learn to detach from that cycle. They see money as a tool, not as a mood indicator. Detachment doesn't mean not caring. It means not depending. When your emotions rise and fall with your income, you make desperate choices, chasing quick wins, selling too soon, buying too fast. Emotional neutrality is what keeps investors calm when markets crash, and creators focused when results lag. The rich treat money like oxygen, essential but invisible once it's flowing. They track it, respect it, but never let it define their self-worth. Because the moment money controls how you feel, it starts controlling what you do.
Ignoring windfalls. When most people get a small financial win, a refund, a bonus, a random crypto gain, they celebrate by spending it. But the rich usually do nothing. They act like it never happened. Every unplanned dollar quietly becomes an invisible worker, invested, automated, or saved for the next opportunity. It's psychological training. Ignoring the dopamine hit of sudden money builds control. It's not the big wins that create wealth. It's how you handle the small ones. Every time you treat a surprise dollar like just another tool, you strengthen the habit that builds freedom. When you stop letting extra money feel extra, you stop resetting your progress every time life gives you a lucky break. Taking risks on purpose. Most people think rich people love risk, but the truth is they train for it. They take small, controlled risks constantly, so big ones don't scare them later. It's not gambling, it's building tolerance. Every decision that feels uncertain, starting a side project, changing careers, investing early, is a rep in risk training. The poor avoid that feeling, the rich seek it, because there's no path to wealth that doesn't go straight through risk. It's the toll gate between comfort and freedom, and you can't skip it. Risk isn't what loses people money. Panic does. The wealthy learn to separate fear from danger, to act before everything feels safe. Every fortune started with someone who stepped into uncertainty on purpose. The goal isn't to eliminate risk. It's to get so familiar with it that you stop needing certainty to move forward. Only buy things you can afford. Most people think, can I buy this means, do I have the money? But the rich think differently. They ask, can I afford this? There's a huge gap between the two. You can purchase almost anything with debt, credit, or sacrifice, but you can only afford what won't change your stress level after you buy it. If it steals sleep, time, or future freedom, it's not affordable, it's just available. The wealthy measure affordability in peace of mind, not price tags. They buy slowly, deliberately, only when it costs them nothing beyond money. Because the truth is, being able to buy something doesn't make you rich. Being able to buy it and feel nothing afterward does. Using envy as power. Most people waste envy. They treat it like poison. The wealthy use it like data. When they feel jealous, they don't hide from it, they study it. Because envy points directly to the gap between what you want and what you've built. If you feel it, it means something in you recognizes possibility. Instead of resenting that person, they reverse engineer them. Habits, systems, mindset, until they turn jealousy into a map. It's your emotional navigator, showing exactly where your next level lives. The poor try to silence envy. The rich try to decode it. Because you can't transform what you won't look at. Every feeling of why not me is a mirror saying it could be. The difference is what you do next.